If you clicked on this video, you likely know who I am from YouTube. I'm John and I create videos about New York City as well as travel. And if you want to get to know me a lot more, watch this video until the end. Here we go. 10 things you probably didn't know about me. 36% of New Yorkers were born in another country, and my parents, my older brother, immigrated to Brooklyn, New York from Ukraine when it was the USSR in 1978. They were amongst a big wave of Russian Jewish immigrants who left discrimination behind to move to the United States in the 70s and the 80s. They eventually settled in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, where my twin brother and I grew up. And my hometown actually has a huge reputation for just being full of Russians. In fact, growing up, I understood Russian very well. Я говорю немножко по-русски. I barely speak anymore. I barely understand Russian anymore. But I will say that growing up as a first-generation immigrant, you have your parents who come from the old country, and then you have all your friends and kids at school who do things a different way. And I remember one time when we were shopping at Modell's Sporting Goods for a baseball bat. It was $200, and our dad bought it for Alan and I, separate baseball bats. He said, "This $200 is your grandma in Ukraine's monthly income. Just remember that." I quit my first big dream. I studied journalism at Rutgers in New Jersey, and my dream was to become a sports broadcaster. And I worked professionally from 2006 to 2015. I traveled all over the United States, from Montana to Vermont to Texas, chasing this dream, eventually settling on a television broadcasting gig in the New York City area, covering high school sports. My goal was always to land a national job. I had some close calls getting a television agent, which fell through. And I actually never told this particular story on the channel or really anywhere, how I finally quit. It was the summer of 2015, and there was a basketball conference in the Midwest that was looking to hire me to broadcast some of their games on one of the ESPN stations. It was gonna be a big national break. I was working for almost a decade. I was this close. They even sent me a schedule of games, had me look through it. There were some big name teams on that schedule. I was excited. I thought this was it. I was finally gonna make it. And I'll never forget, the conference director called me and he left me a voicemail saying that they couldn't fit me into their schedule. And at that point I knew my broadcasting career was over. I didn't want to go through another season broadcasting high school sports, and I think it's fine sometimes to let your dreams die if you've given it your all for a long period of time. And it was just the right moment for me to step away from broadcasting. I moved to New York City because of my twin brother. Let me explain the story. Even though I grew up in northern New Jersey, just 20 minutes from Manhattan, I never actually had a dream to live in New York. I mean, New York was always there. It was always somewhere I went, but it wasn't somewhere I particularly wanted to live at. And then my twin brother began pursuing an acting career, and he decided that if he moved to New York, he'd be closer to auditions, he'd be closer to acting class, and he dragged me along with him to split a 2-bedroom apartment. So I guess you could say I accidentally fell in love with New York City, because it was one thing just to come here on weekends, and it's a completely different story to actually come here and live for almost 10 years. And I am still in the same apartment today. Now, my brother's acting career didn't pan out, although he has done a great job directing and writing some short films. I'm actually gonna put a card to his YouTube channel if you wanna check out some of the things he has done. Please feel free. Also, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to hit that like button so the YouTube algorithm knows to recommend this video to others. was in an Angelina Jolie movie? Well, because my twin wanted to become an actor, he got me into extra work a couple of times where you would show up on a TV set or a movie set and be one of the people in the background. So one day in 2009, I got a phone call asking me if I'd be willing to play a police officer in this upcoming Angelina Jolie movie. I had nothing better to do, so I said fine. So I had to go 2 separate weekends to St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan, dressed to the nines like an NYPD officer. They even had a consultant who was a former detective looking us up and down, making sure that we really did look the part, and we did. Those costumes were for real. But I'll never forget the first time I saw the movie. I went to a theater. I was in Provo, Utah at the time, and I was watching the scene at St. Patrick's Cathedral as Angelina Jolie's character was arrested, and I finally saw myself and I began to laugh. Let me show you this scene. You can spot me quickly smiling, almost laughing right there. And let me tell you what happened. There were these actors who were playing reporters, and it was my job on screen to hold them back from trying to ask questions of the other police officers. And they were trying so hard that I thought it was comical, so I began to chuckle. And I only did this once. There were so many takes, but I just did it once. I laughed to myself at how hard they were trying. And this is the take that they ended up using in the movie. So if you look at the other police officers in the scene, everybody looks serious, and then you see me there with a big smirk on my face. So if you ever watch Salt again, try to find me. That's my movie moment. That's about as close to fame as I'll ever get. I love the 80s. I'm talking about the music, I'm talking about the culture, and I'm especially talking about the movies. Adriana always jokes that when we go to watch a movie on the couch, if it's Netflix, if it's Amazon Prime, I'm gonna pick some old 80s movie, and she's usually right. Something about 80s comedies just work for me. Ferris Bueller, Back to the Future, Risky Business, The Karate Kid, just the most epic 80s movies. They're all my favorite. So that's something I don't talk a lot about on the channel, but I love 80s stuff, and I'm also a big fan of classic rock. I survived getting shot. Yeah, I never in a million years thought I would get shot, but this is a true story, and if you want all the details, I tell it pretty well in a video that I recorded about 3 years ago. I'm gonna put a card to it above, but it was in January 25th, 2013. I had just left a gym in the Bronx. I covered a basketball game for my TV station at the time. I was walking back to the subway, and about 2 blocks from the subway on a busy street, I saw this little boy a few feet in front of me, and he was looking at something, and it just kind of caught my eye, so I stopped, and then I saw commotion ahead. 2 guys were wrestling each other in the street, and then one of them pulled a gun, and he tried to shoot the other guy, and the first shot hit me over my left knee. And if you want to see what this wound looks like 7 years later, this is what it looks like. I believe this was the entry, and this was the exit wound. Now, I got lucky. The bullet missed my bone in my knee by about 1 inch, and I was actually able to walk to a nearby deli to call an ambulance. They eventually arrested somebody. They charged him with attempted murder. However, because I couldn't identify the guy, I was a little bit too far away, and the one witness who saw it was afraid to testify, the case was eventually dropped. There is one part of this story, though, that I look back at time and time again. Remember I said that there was a little boy who caught my attention to look at the commotion. I never saw that kid again. And all these years later, I wonder, why was there a little boy outside at night by himself? It just didn't add up. And to this day, I'm not sure if that kid was actually there. I've never seen the video footage of it. The police saw the footage, they saw me, they never mentioned the kid. Sometimes I feel like I've got 9 lives and somebody is looking out for me. I speak Spanish, más o menos. If you've seen any of my Mexico YouTube videos or Cuba, then you would already know this, but not everybody who has just started following this channel is aware of it. I actually studied Spanish for 3 years with a tutor on Skype, and I was so serious about it that I would sometimes even take classes 5 days a week. I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, even to study with my teacher in person one summer. That was the summer of 2015. And I've traveled throughout Latin America, to Peru, to Chile, through Argentina. This was all before YouTube, of course. And now that I'm married to a lovely Mexican woman, Adriana, I have no excuse not to be speaking Spanish more, but actually my Spanish has gotten a lot worse because we speak English about 99% of the time. Lo siento, pero voy a practicar más. Lo prometo. How did I meet Adriana? I've never actually discussed this publicly in a video. I've always wanted to make a separate video about this topic, but I'm just gonna go out there and tell you the story very briefly. Adriana came to the US for 1 year as an au pair or a nanny for a family in New Jersey. I was living in New York City at the time, and we met through the dating app Tinder. That's right, we met on Tinder, and I remember our first conversation. I was telling her how I was studying Spanish, and I think that was what clicked with her, that I was studying Spanish, she was studying English, and we had that big common bond of language learning. Now, she later told me that she didn't really believe me, that a lot of guys would say to her that they were studying Spanish, they knew some Spanish when they only knew a couple of words, but when we met, we actually were having some conversations in Spanish. And now 5 years later, we are happily married and we've traveled all over the world together. And I'm curious, do you guys want a more in-depth video about how we met and what it's like to be married to somebody from a different culture? If so, tell me down below in the comments. And also for all you single folks out there, don't give up on Tinder. I know it doesn't have the best reputation, but you could be just one swipe away from your future wife or husband. You never know. I am a testicular cancer survivor. Now, I have told the story about this on the channel before. I'm gonna link to that whole video if you're not familiar with it. I've raised money for testicular cancer. What I haven't told you guys is that last week I had my 3-year CT scan to make sure that the cancer hasn't returned, and it has not returned. So I am happy to report that I am 3 years cancer-free. Getting cancer was by far the scariest thing that ever happened to me, even scarier than getting shot, because at least with the gunshot wound, I saw it and I knew that it wasn't life-threatening, and it only really affected me for a couple of days. Cancer, on the other hand, you can't really see it. It's inside of you and you don't know if it spread. And I was so fortunate that I caught my cancer at stage 1 and I never had to go through chemotherapy or radiation. And getting cancer certainly gave me a newfound appreciation for life, for my health. And the interesting thing about testicular cancer is that it predominantly affects men between 15 and 40, young men who feel invincible just like I did. And that's why I've become such a big advocate for men checking themselves monthly for testicular cancer. I'm putting a video down below in the description. I always share this video, how to check yourself in the shower. Please do so. Don't feel invincible, because I was totally ignoring the potential for testicular cancer and it hit me, and this really is something that could save your life. I started my YouTube channel with just about no experience with video recording or video editing. Now, I talked about my background as a broadcaster, and that was a big help, I admit, being on camera. But a lot of people use this excuse that being a video creator is too technical, it's too difficult, it's too hard to learn. Look, I am somebody that is very mechanically and technically challenged. Ask Adriana. I lack common sense in many things. If I'm holding a gadget, I'm likely to probably break it. So if someone like me can start a successful YouTube channel, I think you could do it as well. And not everybody has to go out there filming the world. Many successful channels just sit in one room and record in a studio. If you have a gift, if there's something that you want to share with the world, I think video is one of the best mediums to do so. I think video is the future, and if you have a passion for creating, definitely consider giving YouTube a try, because again, if I could be successful, anybody could be successful on this. Guys, now I want to ask you something. Tell me an interesting fact about yourself in the comments. I want to know more about who's watching this channel. I seriously am curious. Surprise me. And let me know what you thought about this video. If you don't want to share a fact, I also would like to know. Guys, thank you so much for being such loyal supporters of this YouTube channel. It means a lot. Until next time.